Welcome to the Hustler's Guide to Flow. I'm your host, Marcia Miyake, and I'm taking you into the minds of some of the most incredible leaders in the medical, research, business, and yes, even spiritual fields to equip you with powerful insights and practical strategies to level up in business and in life. The next level version of yourself starts now. With 26 years experience in front of and behind the camera, on stage, TV, and film, today's guest has certainly mastered the technical side of presenting. But as you'll learn in this episode, his unique methodology helps presenters go from technically skilled to world class. I'm so excited to have Andrew Eggelton on the show. In this episode, Andrew shares his 5-step methodology that helps presenters authentically connect to their audience by focusing on their heart brain and the magic in the space between the words. Now, before you think this conversation only applies to speakers, this is a must listen to anyone who wants to become a more effective communicator. Hey, Andrew, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here.
Nice to meet you. Nice to be here finally with you, Marcia.
Yeah, definitely. We've been working hard to make this happen. So I'm glad today is finally here. Okay, so I want to open with, what is a mantra or a quote that you live by?
There's a mantra that I use every day, and it's a mantra I created to break the hard wiring or to break me being me. So I was constantly able to recreate myself perpetually every day because I'm aware that if I want new experiences and opportunities, I need to become a different person. So there's a mantra that I use, and it goes like this. In 1 year's time from today, when I'm already in my greatness, how would I act or react?
Oh, I love that. So taking the perspective of the future self. Always.
Yes. So constantly going back to that in all my decision making and going, yeah, but you're scared about this right now, but in 1 year's time when you're in your greatness, in that parallel universe, in that future you, what is he doing? And I go, okay, all right, suck it up. I'm going to do the same.
Oh, I love that. That's so empowering. I love that. I think I'm going to definitely adopt that because it gets you to step out of your fear. It gets you to step out of the current constraints of what you think is possible because you don't know what's going to happen a year from now. And so it allows all this possibility to flow in. So
perfect. And exactly. The other one is a shorter version is to say, it's like me too. So if I think about it, I always kind of think about myself. I don't know if you entertain this idea, but I entertain the idea of a parallel universe. So to entertain that, remember at one point of time at the Big Bang Theory, the universe fit into the palm of our hands. That's proven. That's real. The universe fit into the palm of our hands. And it was obviously quite heavy. And in a trillionth of a second, it went from the palm of our hands, that size, to what it is now. So if you can entertain that idea, we surely can entertain the idea that there's a parallel universe. And I just go back to what is that person, what is that Andrew doing in that parallel universe where he's got all the things, the field retreats, the workshops, all the things that he wants, and he's already doing them. It's like me to do it like this. It's like me to reply like this. It's like me to act like this. So it's constantly breaking my old patterns.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so I love your work. So I was doing some stalking and looking at your different quotes, and I love how you talk about speaking as a way to show your greatness, to step into your greatness. And I also think that there's a strong desire from people to speak and communicate, but there's also a massive fear. Why are we so scared, me included, of public speaking and really just expressing ourselves?
Well, we want to be liked so much, don't we? We want to be liked. And of course, when you're wanting to be liked, you're automatically trying to go into who you're speaking to. So if you got a room, I'm just going to make it a round number for 100, make it easy. If you're speaking to 100 people, we want those 100 people to like us. But of course, I feel like we get so confused because it's our interpretation of, well, what are all these people like? You know, and then we try to fit into that mold. I'm going to use a little bit of research from the last month, and it's about horses. Can I use that?
Mm-hmm, of course.
Okay. So with my method and with what I'm teaching, I try lots of unorthodox things. So I went out to this horse farm called Free Rein, and the horses are all wild. They're full of personality. They've never been on reins or ridden, and they were just put in this arena. Now, I haven't been around horses for 39 years, and so I was understandably very nervous. But what I was trying to do when we were standing on the edge of the arena was I was trying to think of who the horse would like so they would accept me as part of the herd. And I started to catch myself thinking about this and going, I'm already trying to predetermine who I need to be for the horse to like me. Does it sound familiar with what we do when we go and stand on stage, or even on a camera? So I walk in, and I'm frustrated now. I'm getting frustrated at myself because I already am catching myself and going, well, I'm already doing what I teach people not to do. And so I walk in there, and I'm going, the horse will like me and accept me as part of the herd if I'm nice and calm and my energy is neutral. This is my fantasy, right? Doesn't mean it's real. So here's me being my fantasy or my perception of what the horse wants me to be. I'm being quiet, neutral. I'm kind of sneaking up on the horses, standing beside them. I've got my palms down by my sides, facing out, in the caricature of calm, right? That place of neutral. And the horses, wherever I go stand, they bugger off. So they'll walk to the other side of the arena, and then I'll go over there, and then they'll go there. So they're finding me just weird because I need them to like me so much, right? And now, once it was really quite humiliating. And once they gave up, I sat down on the water trough, and I put my hands on my head and just gave up. I was like, oh my God, this is the most humiliating thing that I've had in years. As soon as I forgot about the horses and what they wanted, 2 horses came over and one tried to knock me off the trough, just playing and being boisterous. And I went, well, this is interesting. I'm frustrated and actually getting a bit depressed here, but the horses were interested in me because I was being me in that moment, like true and congruent to what was happening internally. And the same happens on stage. As soon as you're congruent with who you are, how you're feeling, and not putting on that mask of who you think you need to be, there's a connection between your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have, this is the cool thing, you don't have to be hyper energetic or upbeat or super positive if you're being you and authentically you, and you're delivering great content, because that's what speakers do, right? That always helps. If you're delivering great content and some of it from the heart brain, not the head, the technical, but the heart brain, you're able to connect with your audience, and that's where the connection comes from, and they get that, and you get that like and trust factor. It's like he's not perfect, or she's not perfect, but for some reason I'm connecting and I like this person. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that a desire to be liked and us adapting our behavior and adapting the way we're like speaking or approaching things, I think a lot of that is even like subconscious. You don't even know that you're doing it. So you're coming across as like inauthentic, and you're not even really aware. You know what I'm saying? Like
yes,
I've definitely seen myself do it in the past, where I have done exactly what you said. Okay, this is my audience. What do they want to see from me? And then you try to embody that. And then you just come across as clumsy and like inauthentic, but it happened so quickly. I wasn't even aware of it. So this is really juicy, because I think I want to give some people like an approach or a method or some strategies around, well, how can I be a great presenter, a great speaker? And just so that we have like everybody kind of on board, can you also, before that, kind of talk to why is this skill so important beyond just I want to be a speaker? Why is this such a core skill? Like, why do we need to know this? Like business owners, everybody, why do we need to have this skill in our tool belt?
presenting has become such an amazing way to leverage our brand and our business. And when you get the fundamentals of it right, it's an incredible way to communicate. There's so many layers. There's so many layers where I can go with this. But let's start with this. What if you learn how to use the words that match the frequency of your greatness? Okay? And then the more that you use these words, the more that your vocabulary fills with these words. Now, what I used to think was, when I discovered this, was I had to be in that state of flow, or that I call it a conduit for infinite wisdom. When you're on stage or you're presenting, you're playing sport, people feel that. And you just go, holy cow, what is coming out of my mouth right now? This is so good. I sound so smart right now. I wish this happened all the time. And those words were always fresh. They had your essence attached to them. Like that was you and your most pure, authentic self. Because what happens is the saboteur, really. But I'm holding up my hand here for the people who can't see it. It's like you're not there looking from the outside in, correcting yourself and viewing yourself. You're lost in that sense of flow. So it's just you lost in that. So all your mannerisms, you don't care about how scrunched up your face is or what you're doing with your hands. You're just in that moment. And it doesn't last sometimes that long, but that is you and your most pure, authentic self. Those words will have more weight to them. They'll connect with your audience deeper. They will have the essence of you attached to them. Now, what I'm finding is the more I fill my vocabulary with those words, although they will never have the same weight again as the first time I ever spoke them, they still have more weight than the space fillers that we use under pressure to fill the space between the words. So the space between the words for me has just as much impact and is just as beautiful as the words themselves. God, that was a mouthful.
That was so profound, though. It was so profound, like, honestly, because you're saying it's the space between the words, right? And that is like both in speaking and spirituality and our way of being. It's so true. There was another point that I got caught up in what you were saying. Like, instead of coming up with these words to fill that space, and you had a quote, and that's kind of what like got me a little bit off, was I was like, it resonated with me. It's give yourself the time and space to choose the next right word. I love that, because again, using myself as an example, you know, in the past, especially when your nerves go, you're like, okay, I got to fill this. Like, you're not comfortable with the screen. You're not comfortable with that space. You feel this, like, you have to say something. And so I love that you're talking about the importance of having that space in there.
Yes. That space is where the magic happens. During that space is we have to get used to being uncomfortable. So the comfortable is when we're filling the space with good words. And then multiple things can happen. We can forget what we're talking about, lose our train of thought, or we can just feel it's like in our throats that what we're about to say just doesn't match what we've been saying. It's a bit of a letdown. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like we're about to dilute all the good work we've just done. And most people panic in that space, and they will start just filling it. And then, of course, then your audience, this doesn't really sit in the beauty of, wow, they're just silent on stage, but they're still marinating over the beauty of the last words. And what happens when we panic is we go back into our heads. We get into our heads. You know, I'm starting to, oh no, I'm failing, or, you know, they're going to know I'm a fraud. I need to speak. I'm a speaker. That's my job. I'm a public speaker, not a public silence or feeler. And we get into our heads, and remembering the head is a technical. That's where we store all of our information. So all those words that we've used that match the frequency of our greatness is stored in there. And it's great to go back to it. But the magic happens in the heart brain when we're communicating from there. There's a feeling. So we're on topic, right? And there's a feeling in our heart brain. Today would be different to tomorrow, then it'll be different the next day, maybe even the next hour. But that heart brain will have a feeling. Now, how do I match my words to that feeling around my topic? And that's, for me, the key to getting in flow on stage.
Okay, so how does someone tap into that heart brain. When you say heart brain, what specifically are you talking about that someone needs to connect with? Is it just the overall emotion, being in touch with their emotions at the moment, or how can you let's dissect that a little bit?
Okay, cool. I'll keep this really, really simple. So the first thing of my methodology, first thing, the most basic, the worst presenting advice we've ever received from everybody, and everybody says the same thing, is just be you. What does that even mean? Like what part? What day? You know, who am I on a Monday is very different than who am I on a Friday. What part? Like when I was working in film and TV, directors would go, Andrew, just be you. And you go, as a 20-year-old, that's really scary because, you know, I'm still working that out, man. But if I'm an infinite being, what part do you want me to choose exactly of me? And so how I get people into create the best possible foundation is to not change state. So the key to that, if I'm about to go on stage or to do, let's say, a Facebook Live, I won't set about changing my state because I think that I should be in another state to present in. So I will acknowledge how I'm feeling. I will give it a name. I'll describe it. And then I won't judge it to be good or bad, wrong or right, or negative or positive to what I'm about to go and do. So the times that sometimes I'm feeling a bit melancholic or introspective or a little bit unsettled are quite often the lives or the presentations I give where I go the deepest and feel the most congruent, because I haven't had to change my state because I'm not judging it to be the one that my audience need. It's the one today that I've got, and it's perfect to begin with.
I love that so much because you're right. There's a lot of coaching, I suppose, or advice around getting into the right state to achieve this and execute on that. And, you know, there's like power moves and all these types of things you can do to get yourself into state. And I just that totally resonates with the work that I do in terms of just honoring where you are in this moment. And I love that advice because even I've gone to do like a video or something like that. And I'm like, oh, my energy is not where it typically is, let's say, or I'm just feeling different. And I don't beat myself up over it, but it's more like I might even have a lowered expectation, like, oh, this is not going to be as good because my energy is not, super high. And I love that advice because it's so true. And honoring that if you are a little bit more introspective in that moment and not so rah, that you come out with different wisdom and different nuggets. I love that. That was amazing.
Most of my content is created from my presenting. So I'll take note or I'll transcribe it, or if I'm speaking on stage, I've always got someone taking notes. And literally I know when I've hit beautiful points, and I'll either just look at them and smile, or I'll literally tell the audience that was really good right there. I hope you write that down. It becomes part of the fun, the experience. I call these hotspots. So when I start to get on a roll and I'm speaking about things in a way that I've never spoken about before, and words from here to match the frequency of my greatness. I didn't come up with that because I sat here thinking about it. It just popped in when I was speaking, and I went, where did that even come from? I've never even thought of that before. Where did that come from? It's beautiful. And so then I'll sit down with my pad and post-it notes, and I'll go, there's more to this. I've unearthed something here that's come from either the space of greatness or subconscious. I'm not sure how to describe something that's beyond words, I believe. And I will then go deeper and deeper and work on that. I'm like, there's a learning in here. There's a learning in here. There's more leverage in here. So I'll pull it apart. I'll create diagrams and pictures and speak about it. Like my next live will be on words from here match the frequency of my greatness. And I'll give myself all the time and space that I need to articulate it. And I'll find more. And all of a sudden then that becomes something that I teach. So then that one line becomes my leverage of which people pay me to teach them.
I love that. So when you're saying that you're presenting and then something comes to you and you weren't cognitively trying to conjure this up, it just comes to you. I felt that in the past before, where I felt like, oh, I don't think that word was even mine just then. I feel like something else. Do you feel like that's the key, like, or an important aspect to being a great speaker is to knowing what you're going to talk about, but also being open to receiving like a higher intelligence?
100%. For me, that's the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail of presenting is when I have a really clear framework. I prepare my ass off, like I really prepare. I know my slides back to front. I know what I'm going to speak about. I know the points. I know the exercises. I know the stories that I might use, depending on if the audience needs to go deeper or to laugh at me or with me. But the Holy Grail is when you're able to touch that point of the words are coming through you. Your work's coming through you in front of an audience, and they might not recognize it as that person's in flow or that person's a conduit for infinite wisdom right now, but they will feel the difference in the words. Mm-hmm. You can just tell. You know. Mm-hmm. Because there's that little part, the little voice in the back of your head going, "Oh my God, dude, you're rocking it right now." It's the opposite of, "I'm doing okay, I'm not screwing this up." It's completely opposite. It's literally, I could be on any stage in the world right now and I'd still be rocking it because these words have got the weight behind them.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, so let's go back to your method. So was it step one?
Step one is no change of state.
No change of state.
Now, that's just to clear this up too, is it doesn't mean that you spend the whole presentation in that same state. You work moment to moment from there. I mean, it's very hard to go on if I'm feeling, God, this is 26 years, I still go on. I get nervous. Sometimes I'm insecure. Sometimes I'm frustrated. Could have, road rage still inside me. But when I go onto stage, as long as if I don't judge the state, then I haven't had to put a mask on. Mm-hmm. And the mask keeps me playing small within how well I know my mask. Okay, so we all have our masks to be liked, to be seen, which is our perception or fantasy of what other people have of us. It's like our external looking back in. Now, when we put the mask on, we've put a block up between us and our audience. It's literally a block straight away. So when we don't do that, like when I walk on stage, sometimes I just don't need to speak. And I'll just smile at them and go, this is pretty cool. Sometimes I'll say, do you know what? I'm really nervous. How cool is that? After 26 years, I still get really nervous. And then everyone kind of sighs that sigh of relief. Oh, God, him too. And so that's the foundation. And that's the foundation to just be you.
Yeah, you answered one of the questions I was going to ask, is like, do you actually communicate those nerves? Do you communicate what you are experiencing to the audience?
Yeah, on a professional level, yes. Like if I'm having a bad day, I don't need to walk out and tell my audience I'm having a bad day because it's none of their business and it's certainly not what they want to hear. I'm still a professional delivering the best content that I can deliver and representing my depth of knowledge in this field. But if I'm nervous, I think it's really nice to own it.
Yeah.
And
it's another point where they can relate to you. Especially if they have dreams and aspirations to be someone like you, like, oh man, I want to be a speaker like him. For you to say something like, hey, I'm nervous right now. Like, it builds that sense of connection. Okay, awesome. Step two.
Step two is moving from the head to the heart brain. So the head is the technical, it's the computer, it's the technical. Now the technical is often what people teach. It's the where do you stand, what do you do with your hands, unpacking your story, how to sell, tell a story straight up that people can relate to. That's a way of connecting, right? Stories. Now, most teachers or coaches in the speaking area will call that mastery, right? And I remember the day that I used to be very good technically and I used to think, I've nailed this. I'm a master presenter, and I was working in TV as a presenter all the time on stage. It wasn't until later I realized that it's a very stifled approach because there's not a lot of artistry involved, and it's certainly not mastery. And it's lacking a connection because you're really in your head thinking about where am I standing right now? Who am I pointing to right now? What hand am I using? Is it past or present, or is it the future? Am I unpacking this story? What happens at minute number 2? Where the connection comes with my humanness. Mm-hmm. And what I love, and it's also quite daunting, is, I'm walking out on stage teaching people, talking about presenting, and people are like, oh, here comes that world-class presenter. And then they see how unpolished I am. But it just makes it so much more human. Mm-hmm. My content's still there. My stories are still there. My experience and how I want them to feel, all these little things, I've got them in my repertoire. But my humanness is there for them to see. My forgetting what I'm saying on stage. My stumbling over my words, sometimes tripping on stage. All that stuff that humans do. It doesn't have to be perfect. Our imperfections are the window of which we let our audience in.
Yeah. So what you're saying is kind of like the first step to mastery is understanding the technical part. So you get the technical bits in place, and then to level up even more to get into real mastery is where you get into that.
See, I think we can skip the technical part out, the mastery part. I believe that we can go from being quite average or just good to being really damn good or great by skipping out that piece. Now, you've still got to do your preparation. You've got to know where you're going. You want to know, how do I want my audience to feel in multiple places today? Like, when you're 20 minutes in, how do I want my audience to feel right now? Mm-hmm. If I want them to feel inspired, because this is or motivated, but how do I get them to that feeling motivated? Mm-hmm. Instead of me just looking motivated and going, you can do it, which is what a lot of speakers do, is like, how do I really get into their heads right now? How do I really get into their heads? So that the heart brain is where, I'm coming back to the methodology. The heart brain is where we learn to articulate our topic, but using the feeling that is sitting in our heart brain today. And that takes, which leads us on to step 3, which is time and space. So you have to take your time to explore the space between the words.
Yes.
Explain between the words. Now, in my head, and this is probably where it only exists, that feels like all the words and ideas, the concepts, the sentences exist. They're all there. They're all there because we're all tapped into it, right? We're all tapped into the same thing. And otherwise, how do when you get a quote, or sometimes I'm watching Joe Dispenza, he might do a post on Instagram and I'm like, oh my God, I said that yesterday. Word for word, I said that yesterday, and I've never seen this before. Mm-hmm. And it's new to him, and you're going, that just reaffirms to me, well, when you're in, you're in. When you're tapped into that, you're tapped into the very same thing. And so there's all these words and ideas floating around there, and I won't have an opportunity to discover them if I keep speaking.
Yes, 100%. That resonates on so many levels because I've experienced similar things, and I also think that's interesting when coaches try to, really like own certain concepts. And I'm like, we don't own anything. We're all tapping into the infinite intelligence. And I loved how you're touching on, you need to create that time and space to allow that inspiration, or whatever you want to call it, to come in. Otherwise, you're just operating straight from your head. I love that.
Marcia, it's like you've got to ask the question, well, I know what the point I'm trying to make here, but how do I really want to articulate it today in this moment? And you got to ask yourself and wait. And the waiting can be uncomfortable because people are waiting for you to speak. Mm-hmm. But you've got to trust that it's coming, and it will. And sometimes it can be 2 seconds, sometimes it can be 10 to 15, which is a long time on stage. But you can have certainty, which is I'm going to remember word for word what I'm going to say, or you can have uncertainty and magic.
Yeah.
Magic comes with the uncertainty. And on stage, before I go on stage, that's actually a choice I have to make, where I go, I can have certainty here. I can repeat what I said last time, or I'm going to see where this goes within the framework, And I'm going to give myself time to truly just choose the next right word that articulates what I want to say today around my topic.
Yeah. I love what you're saying on so many levels, because I understand that we're speaking about speaking, but these are profound spiritual principles that are so relevant just in our lives. And you're presenting it in such a way that it is so tangible and so digestible. Like, I can see exactly how this relates to speaking and why this would make you a powerful speaker, but I'm seeing how I can apply this to my life in general, to just in relationships and in everything else. So I'm loving it. Amazing.
I think just about everybody that I mentor or speak to always say, this isn't presenting, you know that. I go, yeah, I know, but the presenting is the Trojan horse.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Do you know what's the beautiful thing about when we do use that time and space and articulate what we really want to truly say, and it's coming from that place, and those words have the weight or that essence of us attached to them, we end up speaking from a very unique perspective. It becomes our unique perspective. And when we're speaking from our unique perspective, it means we're playing at the vanguard of ourselves. So you can copy and paste, and this is a lot of coaches, it's not just coaches, this is business, that people are doing the same thing as the other person. Do you know what I mean? But when you are peeling back the layer of you all the time, so if you go back to what I said about hotspots, finding, when I get off stage and go, words from here match the frequency of my greatness, oh my God, I'm going to explore that more. And then I end up creating a module on it, or that's a part of my training. And then I'm going, this is very unique to me. I put all these together. I explored it. No one else. Each hotspot is another layer peeled back towards my cause purpose. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm starting to play at the vanguard. I always do this for my hands. I'm making a video. I don't know why. It just happens. But I'm playing at the vanguard of me, the vanguard of myself, which means I'm not competing with anybody else in my space. I can stop looking in my rear vision mirror. It's me against me. Now, I get that clue. I'm just going to use this as an example again. As, on stage, you go, the words from here match the frequency of my greatness. If I didn't explore that, but it's sitting there, when you get that idea and it's sitting there, and it's going around in your head and going, what do I do with it? It's like I imagine my future self is giving me breadcrumbs. And if I don't follow it, I just imagine my future self standing there going, are you kidding me? Andrew, are you kidding me? I'm giving you this clue. It's so obvious. In fact, it's like haunting you even when you go to sleep. You can't stop thinking about it. Do something about it, and then I'll give you the next clue.
I love that. Okay, so step 3 is time and space. Is there
time and space?
Is there step 4?
There is a step 4, and it's embody. Embody is when we physically, vocally start to embody the words and what it is that we do. So I'm going to give you this is how I came up with this. I was on a TV show, and there was 2 public speakers, me and another guy, and the other guy, 10 years older than me, been in the public speaking teaching part a lot longer. But he had this big baritone voice, and he was this big man, knew his stuff. When we spoke on the panel, it was like when he spoke about presenting, I just listened. And then when I spoke and I was watching it in the edit or back on the camera, I was going, I sound like a little boy next to him, like a little bit unsure, like I know my stuff, but I'm a little bit unsure. And so that bugged me. And I messaged him and I said, look, can we have a really quick phone call? And the phone call was like 3 minutes. I just said, what is the difference between you now and when you were my age? And he went, oh, that's so simple, Andrew. I just believe what I'm saying now. And so I'm like, oh, my God. So I'm not going to wait 10 years to believe what I'm saying. I'm going to embody that now. And so when I choose these words, I gave them life. I own them. They're mine. I chose them. I'm going to give them life. So bring certainty to it. You know what I mean? And I removed from my language, it's kind of like this. Maybe it's a little bit. It's, kind of maybes. I kind of empower people. It's a little bit like this. It's like, no, it is. It's this.
Mm-hmm. Certainty.
It's certainty. So that Embody, I just noticed on stage not just on stage, but I noticed I was changing physically how I sat. I noticed that my words, I chose them and I was very deliberate about them. And what I noticed is that people started to believe in me more because they could see that I believed in myself. And so that Embody happens because when you're in these flow, when you're choosing these words between the space, giving yourself time and space, you have to be sure about what you're doing. So I'm embodying this. I know what I'm doing. This is my methodology. I know what I'm doing here. I'm okay in this being uncomfortable. Let's enjoy this together. Let's enjoy being a little bit uncomfortable together. Because it's actually quite nice after a little while. There's beauty in that. There's beauty in that awkwardness. And then when I spoke, I was like, this is what I want to say. And if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do this thing. I'm not going to, my thoughts, my actions, and my words became aligned. So it was that whole embodying. Because all my audience is waiting all they're waiting for is to see if I believe myself before they buy into me. And if we think about it in the coaching world, is people who are buying off you are buying certainty.
Yeah.
I'm going to invest in Marcia because I don't know, it might work, it might not. They're like, no, I'm certain that my investment is going to be returned to you.
Yeah. That's so true. And I think I heard Ed Milat say something similar because he was talking about his kind of career. And he said, it's your work is not to convince, your audience. It's just to believe it yourself. It's like you're convincing yourself. If you're convinced, they'll be convinced. If your level of certainty, you transfer that level of certainty to your audience. So I love that. And are there any more steps to the method?
The last one and the granddad of all steps, expansion. So now it is becoming that person. And those are expansion tools where I gave you right at the beginning. If we double back, it's like me too. Mm-hmm. Or in 1 year's time from today, when I'm already in my greatness, how would I react right now? Because what I was finding at the beginning of my teachings was I was creating great presenters, but they weren't getting work. And so it really got me thinking, why aren't they working? What's not working for them? And I went, they're still the same person making the same decisions with the same friends, with the same work habits and beliefs, but now they're just good presenters. Mm. So it reminded me of the powerlessness I had as an actor, where I could have been good at my craft, but I wasn't given opportunities. So I fundamentally, it's a large part now, is consistently breaking the pattern of who you are all day, every day. So you're starting to make decisions like the Andrew that is capable of holding stage with Anthony Robbins or Joe Dispenza, or, 1,000 people are coming to his event. How does he make decisions? And what would that decision be? How would he react right now? And in the last 3 years, my growth has been so fast in the last 3 years since I figured that out.
Yeah. That is so powerful. Love the methodology. And again, as I said, it's like, yes, so relevant to speaking, and I can see how you could totally utilize it, but it is just so profound on so many levels, just in terms of life. So it's obvious that you know your stuff and you know it at a deep level. So people want to get in touch with you and work with you. How can they do that?
I think the best way is having a look at the website, andreweggelton.com.
Awesome. We'll put all of your social media and everything in the comments in the show notes.
Perfect.
So people can reach out. So before I ask my last question, I feel like I didn't even get to ask some of the questions because I feel like we went so much deeper than I expected. I'll be totally honest. I knew your content you're taking a different angle, and I could see that. But after speaking to you, I can see how deep it is. So first of all, I want to honor you for the work that you're doing to really helping people find their voice, but doing it in such a spiritual way. And I don't know if the word spiritual resonates with you for me to even say that to you, but that's how I perceive it, in the deepest, way, in most authentic way. Like all of your work is about connecting, showing up as that person's authentic self and tapping into their greatness, as you were speaking about before. And what was the phrase you used? A conduit for...
A conduit for infinite wisdom.
Yeah, a conduit for infinite wisdom. Like, yes, on so many levels. I just love it. So I want to honor you for that and the work that you're doing, and just taking a completely incredible approach to public speaking, and obviously giving your clients so much more than just skills to be a great communicator.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really, really nice of you to say.
You're welcome. Okay, for my final question, what is the legacy you would love to leave?
I've said this since my 20s, to change the way that people communicate, to change the way that people present and communicate.
Love it. Thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Marcia.
Okay, guys, I hope you got some powerful takeaways from this episode. If so, please share it with someone. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and review, as it helps us to spread our message of inspiration. Sending you so much love, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Hustler's Guide to Flow.